Oh, If you were hoping this was going to be another one of those videos where a pro shows you how to do something without anything going wrong and getting a perfect result in the end, I'm afraid you're in the wrong place. What you will get in this video is a much more genuine representation of what actually happens when you or I take on some of these big projects.
Are you sure it fits? Oh.
So we're in early 2020, everything's going well. My wife and I have both got stable office jobs, my son's at school. He's also doing pretty well learning to play the drums, so we decided to convert one of our small bedrooms into a music room. We bought an electronic drum kit and it also gives me a handy place to keep all my guitars. Then March rolled around.
From this evening, I must give the British people a very simple instruction. You must stay at home.
And the UK went into lockdown. All of a sudden, like everybody else, our world got flipped upside down. We were all having to work from home. I then got furloughed from my job and Jacob's doing his schoolwork from home as well. The only option we had was to set up an office in our kitchen dining room. As you can see, it worked, but there's not really enough room. Just as we think we're starting to get in the groove and making things work, I lost my job. So without a job, I obviously needed to do something. So I decided to start a YouTube channel. As you do. It wasn't too long before we came to the conclusion that we really needed an office. But we still needed a room where my son can practice drums in the evening. So with Jacob finally going back to school, we decided to take the opportunity to try and fit a desk for 2 people and 2 workstations in our small music room. So we measured up the space we had and nothing was available. There's literally no desks that are big enough for 2 people that fit in the space we had. So we decided to make one. We had a look at all the different materials we could use and decided that even though it's expensive, carbon fibre could actually be quite a good option. It might seem like a strange conclusion to come to, but I've actually got a reasonable amount of experience with carbon fibre working on smaller components like weight skates and wakeboards. So we figured, well, this is just a bit bigger. It will be the same process, right? So the first thing we did was bought a sheet of 18mm MDF, cut it to size, and then glued and screwed the thing together. Now the plan was always to just use a wet layup and just skin the MDF in carbon fibre. We weren't going to use any moulds, vacuum bagging, anything like that. I actually used some pine strip wood with a radius on it and 3D printed a part for the corner. Yes, I could have cut this and routed it, but I didn't have a router bit the right size, so it was just easier for me to use these other materials. So once everything was glued and screwed together, we put down a black resin. This is just a normal resin with a black pigment in it, just so you don't see the MDF through the tiny little holes in the weave of the carbon fibre. Once this black resin had gone off, we were about ready to put down our carbon fibre. However, as I've never done anything quite this big out of carbon fibre, I decided to have a little bit of a Google and see what other people had done. This was my first mistake. I found this video here with someone doing a very professional job with a completely different method than I'd used before. The method I'd always used in the past was to put down some resin, let it get nice and tacky, and then stick down the carbon fibre cloth into the top of the wet resin and then put some more resin on top. This method has its pros and cons, and I was worried about this much carbon fibre all going down nice and straight on the first try. You don't get the opportunity to lift it back up again once it's stuck. So it's a one-shot deal. Once it's on, it's on. So this other method was suggesting that you can lay the carbon fibre down dry and then pour the resin over the top. So this is what we decided to do. It seemed to work for other people. So we get everything ready, we cut the carbon fibre to size. I even 3D printed this corner clamp and used a heat gun to just kind of mould the carbon fibre to the corner before pouring the resin on. Now before we get to my howler, let's just quickly go over why people don't normally show these bits and why I think they should. I'm on a mission to help people all over the world take on and complete projects that they otherwise wouldn't have the confidence to. As part of that, you need to see that we all make mistakes. It's how you react to them that makes the difference. So on this particular project, I've already spent around $300 or £200 on materials after losing my job when every penny needs to be accounted for. I've convinced my wife that this is a sensible way to spend this money. Plus I'm filming it to make a YouTube video to show all of you so that you'll give me your likes and subscribes and show all your friends and help me grow a successful YouTube channel. Whether you're decorating, crafting or building something, there's usually some kind of investment, and making mistakes is embarrassing. Nobody wants to look silly, and it can really hit your self-confidence when things go wrong. It's very easy to edit out all the mistakes and make it look like every project is perfect, but I don't think that really helps anyone, and ultimately helping people is all I'm trying to do here, rather than just show off what I can make like a lot of YouTube creators seem to do. Now with all that being said, let's get back to the desk and see how my solution opportunity presented itself. So we're mixing up our resin. We've got 2 cups going, we're both mixing. We want to do 3 minutes of mixing per cup. We've got about 20 minutes to get the resin down before it's going to start to go off. So we're pouring on the resin. I'm using the foam roller to just gently move all the resin about, just to try and wet out all the cloth so it soaks all the way through. However, the big mistake that I made was that in using this method, there's nothing really to let the air out from underneath the cloth. I would have thought that it would have worked its way through the resin, but with the cloth in the way, it just didn't want to come out. The more resin that soaked through the cloth, the more the cloth just wanted to float up on top of the resin. So I'm taking my time trying to get everything perfect, which then tripped me into the second problem. I asked my wife to pass me the second cup of resin, and then I just poured it straight on. Unfortunately, that second cup of resin had already started to kick. I poured it all out of the cup, and then I started to roll it. As soon as the roller hit the resin, I knew instantly it had all gone wrong. The resin I just poured on had already started to cure. Once it starts going, there is nothing you can do. You just have to leave it to go hard, and it goes really hard. I tried putting a heat gun on the resin, it didn't work. All that really happened is I got more and more stressed. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that this was quite a low moment. If you've been enjoying any of my content, why not consider supporting the channel by clicking the Buy Me a Coffee link down below. Don't worry, you don't have to actually buy me anything, just click follow and you get to see a little bit behind the scenes and what I'm up to next. A special mention this week goes to Brian and Charles. Thanks for your support, guys. So at this stage really there was nothing left to do but just leave it alone, let the resin go hard and come back to it the next day. As you can see, it was a mess. I was really disappointed. I've had jobs go wrong in the past, but nothing that was kind of completely unrecoverable as this seemed to be at this stage. The only saving grace I can say for this method was that the corner and the edges were okay. Unfortunately, the big flat area of the desk is completely ruined. There's nothing I can do about that. And I certainly can't leave it as it is. I don't want to be looking at that all day. So what I did was I asked for help. I contacted the supplier of the carbon fibre and I told them what I'd done. I asked for their advice on how to put it right. I also watched more YouTube videos with different methods and tried to use a bit more of my experience on other projects that I'd done where things had gone right. So let's be a bit more positive. What I needed to do was end up with a nice flat carbon fibre finish on the top of this desk. The edges were okay, they were recoverable. However, you would see a line. If I just put another piece on the top, you'd see a line between the top and the sides. So what I decided to do was to put another layer of carbon fibre on the top. Yes, I know that meant spending another £100 or $150 on carbon fibre and all the resin to go with it. However, I'd already invested so much in this project, I wasn't going to just let it go to scrap. It's not just the cost of the materials. If I'd have just dropped this project completely, I probably wouldn't have had the confidence to do anything like this again. So for my own mental health, I really needed to finish this to prove that I could do a project like this and end up with a good result. So the decision was made. More carbon fibre was going on the top. I was going to cut everything short just by the corner as it turns down into the sides, and then I was going to have to make it look right at the end. So I went back to my original method that I've always used successfully on every other project I've done with carbon fibre. And I put resin on and I let the resin go tacky. And then I rolled the carbon fibre out over the top and stuck it down into the resin. I then poured more resin over the top to wet out the carbon fibre. I used a heat gun to get all the bubbles out of the carbon fibre and ended with a nice clear resin glass finish on top of the carbon fibre. The only problem I had was that I had the edge of the carbon fibre showing in the middle of the desk almost. So with the careful use of a palm sander, I gently took down all the high spots off the edge of the new layer of resin. So once I got a nice smooth transition between the two layers of carbon fibre, I masked off all of the good areas of the desk on the top and the sides and left a strip. I then spray painted this gloss black. Once flatted down and with multiple layers of resin on top, I've ended up with a desk that looks stunning. So after flipping the desk over, painting the bottom black and putting some legs on, the desk was ready to use. We already knew it was going to fit perfectly in the space, but what we didn't really know was how it was going to be to work at this desk with 2 office chairs and the small amount of room that we had. Thankfully, everything worked out perfectly. We've got a fantastic little home office during the day that becomes a music room in the evenings when Jacob gets home from school. We can make Zoom calls without the washing machine running in the background. And on colder days, we can heat just a very small room in our house and both be comfortable. What at one stage was starting to look like a project too far turned out to be the best one yet. It's very easy to watch these YouTube videos of people only showing you what goes right and think that everything only ever goes right. But I guarantee you, for every one of those videos which goes perfectly, there's another one which didn't even make it onto YouTube because they threw it away. Or even the videos that do look perfect, they just edited out the bad bits because nobody wants to look bad on camera. If this video has had any effect on you at all, please drop a comment down below. I would love to hear about anybody who's taken on a project after watching this video, or tell me your stories of how you've had a project go really wrong and how you've managed to either pull it back from the brink or how it was just too far to recover. Remember to like and subscribe. If you like this video, YouTube will show it to more people and we can get the message out there a bit further and hopefully help someone else. Obviously, if you hit subscribe, you'll get to see all my other videos as well. Thanks for watching, and I hope you've got some value out of this video.